From the journeys of belonging to blackness, I'm Yndia Lorik Wilmot.
Nobody else can do this job.
You're listening to the podcast, Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness. Joining us today is Chef Keesha O'Galdez. Keesha is a culinary artist and educator, a natural foods private chef, and entrepreneur based in New York City with clients along the East Coast. Previously, she was an information systems engineer that worked in the nonprofit, academic, public, and financial sectors for several years, but whose entrepreneurial spirit goaded her to pursue her passion for culinary arts full-time. Since completing the chef's training program at the Natural Gourmet Institute for Culinary Arts in New York City, Keesha has graced kitchens as either a pastry chef in restaurants as Smith Canteen in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, Amy's Bread, and Smile to Go in Soho, or as a catering chef at Patina Events and Oliver Chang. In the midst of this work, Keesha's entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and she founded and currently serves as executive chef of the Gourmet Diva, which focuses on organic, vegetarian, vegan, and other health supportive diets. She is also the recent recipient of the Doonie Fund, which supports Black women entrepreneurs. You may have seen Chef Keesha on multiple episodes of Epicurious's 50-person prep challenge web series, which has over 10 million views alone. Looking forward to learning more about healthy eating with Chef Keesha. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on this podcast, particularly interested in unpacking the stories of African descendants and the stories they tell about themselves and their journeys too. I have been following you and your culinary delights for some time now, and I've been intrigued by your efforts to educate African descended and other people of color on accessing and eating healthy, natural food options, including vegetarian and vegan meals, especially when these communities oftentimes live in food deserts. I'm eager to learn about your journey, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
Right about now.
Act 1, Call to Adventure.
This is the breakdown.
So, Keesha, there are paths that we take and processes we engage in to get us to where we are today. Sometimes those paths or processes are emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and so on. How did you become interested in doing the work you do today?
I know it's definitely been a journey. Just actually looking back, this year marks the 10-year anniversary I graduated from culinary school. As you mentioned, I went to the Natural Gourmet Institute in New York, where the school actually focused on more vegetarian, holistic cooking. And prior to that, I was a consultant at Bank of America. So it's the transition is usually a story of how I went from engineering to culinary arts. Definitely a lot of different transitions throughout the way. My need to always give back or just be in a support system. Then after a while, I was like, all right, I want to make some money. So I kind of went corporate. But then in 2008, when the market crashed, everybody was laid off. So that was definitely one of the pinnacle points of me going into the culinary industry, that, moment where I'm like, I don't really want to go back to corporate America and figure out something in some way to, make it on my own.
Keesha, when did this all start for you?
That when I started just baking cakes, I was talking to people more about, selling cakes and everything, kind of what I'm doing. But more people started talking about their health concerns, like, oh, I'd love to support you, but I'm diabetic. I would love to support you, but I'm eat a little bit healthier. And that kind of piqued my interest more about healthy cooking.
Other people considered the ways they ate, but what about the ways in which you ate?
Cook for myself, and, it's a way of life. You go home and you make dinner, but then you realize a lot of people don't have the skill set broadly eat healthier. Like fruits and vegetables are kind of like, ugh, I don't, really. Within like the first year or so, just knowing that I can cook, but I wanted to do better, I decided to go to the Natural Gourmet Institute just to learn more about the connection about what we eat and how we feel.
Well, definitely the journey to being healthier. I mean, when many of us have been relegated to our home spaces due to the global pandemic, really raises one's awareness about, well, what is it that I typically have in my household? What is it that I'm consuming? How can I be a little bit healthier and avoid putting on the COVID pounds. What you're raising about the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of people in the United States tend to have chronic health conditions, even though we are one of the most industrialized countries in the world. It's ironic. And when you really think about the ways in which we function on our day-to-day, even before the global pandemic, we have these back-to-back meetings. We're in the space of grab and go. We're consuming items so that we don't get that hunger headache. Sometimes just that habit of the grind, many people do not slow down and take the time to say, well, what is it that I'm actually putting into my mouth at this moment? And is it really the best food option? To eat healthy is also very expensive. It's easier to go and get something from the dollar menu at your local fast food restaurant than to stand someplace and spend basically $12 for one of those salads that they weigh.
Exactly. And that's no conversation as well. Of why does it cost so much to, eat healthy? And then go back and forth like, all right, fine. I'll spend the money now because I don't want to be in the hospital. People of the diaspora, like most of the conditions we have, be controlled by the things that we eat. Why not take back that power? Diabetes, high blood pressure, change your diet just a little bit or be more cognizant of what we're eating. You don't have to go through taking pills. It definitely is a mind game. Fat tastes good, salt and all that, great stuff, but it's kind of demystifying that healthy food tastes bad.
How can African descendants demystify food? Who can we look to?
Even a lot of our ancestors, they ate, exactly a lot of root vegetables, and you think about yams and plantains and all the types of greens. But then, like I said, in such an industrial society, why are we eating crap? Now our lives are just filled with, we're busy going. What does every meeting have? The morning muffins and coffee. Just even a tweak and change. Like, can you have a fruit platter at least? But we're still trained, you're supposed to have it, certain things, birthdays, you have your cake. And you're not saying you can't have treats every now and then, but is that awareness to say, I can do better?
A lot of people who don't necessarily have access to the variety of different kinds of foods that we can consume. And I think sometimes as a result, even from childhood, some people's palates aren't very well developed. And so it's just like the only green vegetable they may consume is broccoli. And so then when they get into adulthood and then someone is saying or encouraging them, hey, there are other inexpensive but alternatives to broccoli, it's like, oh, I don't do that, or I don't eat that, or I gotta have some pork fat mixed up in there. And I'm not hating on the pork fat. I love me some pork fat, but you can see oftentimes the inequality that manifests. But what I'm curious, and I think our listeners will be too, is that if you think back to your childhood and growing up, who motivated you to become a chef or helped to inspire your entrepreneurial spirit? Because I think it's one thing to say, I'm an engineer, I work as a consultant, who bake. But for you, you made that leap.
I always admired kids who were very adamant. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer growing up. And I'm like, I grew up in the Bronx in New York. Two parents who were from Belize in Central America came over here to make sure their kids had a better life and that whole story. Both my parents didn't really cook. I kind of took on that duties of cooking for the family.
Okay, so a busy immigrant household, but what's your relationship with food?
Food is definitely in my DNA. Most of my aunts, they do cook, but in my immediate cluster of my parents and my sister, I was the one that provided food. So just learning how to cook from the back of a box, literally good at it, but it wasn't really something I felt necessarily passionate about or that I would ever make a career of it. I always was good at math and science. So in honors classes, so they kind of pushed me towards math and science career. Fine. I used to love watching, Different World with Dwayne Wayne. He was an engineer. I'm like, okay, that seems kind of cool. And put this down. I'll be an engineer. Then went to school at the University of Buffalo. And I never cooked in college. So you can ask anybody who went to undergrad with, see me as a chef now, but like, how the hell did that happen?
And this is all before social media, but why would people be surprised?
It wasn't something that people knew that I could do. And I wasn't really one to talk like, yeah, I cooked this yesterday. It was just, you cooked this, you had to eat. Fast forward into, my 20s, exactly the same thing. You got to cook to, fend for yourself. But then also, the entrepreneurial spirit was in a lot of people that I knew around me. Because you talk about generational wealth. You have your 9 to 5, but you always have like a side hustle. It was like a year out of college, started working in IT. And I didn't like the cube life at all. I was like, this is just not for me.
How'd you know it wasn't for you?
The conditions of how I'm working isn't it. I want to go in from 9 to 5. I don't want my mandated 12 o'clock lunch. And doing that day in, day out, I'm like, oh my God.
And what about when you worked in the nonprofit sector?
And I enjoyed it. And there's more, like for me, working for more of a mission. So it's just kind of going through life, figuring out yourself. I need to wake up in the morning and feel like, oh, I can create something and just go and do it. I don't need to fill out 20 million forms to get something done.
What would you say was that point professionally that urged you to shift into the food industry?
Being laid off was kind of putting a dog out her misery and just kind of having that, what do I like to do? What you like to do in your, sleep? And that's when I was starting, to bake more.
And your entrepreneurial spirit kicked in.
I had to give somebody else advice, even though you do like to cook, to be able to do it under pressure and to think about it through the lens of money and how you want to monetize it, it's a whole different ballpark.
What do you mean by that? A difference between business and a hobby or passion project?
Because you may be passionate about something, but it's not something you necessarily want to do as a business. Like I love nature, but I have no ambition to have a hiking company. But realizing what I'm great at is looking at the numbers, looking how to cook under pressure and to replicate things. And once you start to talk about the business of food is the minute part of the business. You talk about client relations, menu development, and then you're executing on food.
Wow, there's so many small moving parts to this industry.
It was always those little elements around and then kind of putting together, I guess I actually am built for entrepreneurship and food is the conduit, for me to express it. And the field is so vast, you can always find a home in it, either in a restaurant, opening up a restaurant, having a catering business, a food blog, food photography, finding yourself and figuring yourself out.
Being laid off gave you the space to recalibrate and to think about what your next move is. And by observation, it seems to me that, there are certain elements around math and science that's already embedded and germane to culinary works and being able to be creative. You're just activating a different part of your brain to execute. Yeah. What was that leap of faith that you took?
Right. I could have went back to finding a job. And when I actually thought about that moment, I think I broke down crying. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to go through the interviews. That was a struggle point. Like, it's just having that leap of faith, having faith in yourself. If it fails, guess what? There are jobs out there. And this is kind of that moment in time where like, you know what? I wouldn't have left my job to do this. I think it's a sign. Use it as that point where, you know what? Yeah, I have that time. Yet it's also it's a blessing in disguise. I think COVID for me now is kind of reflective of you have that moment to, even through all the disasters that are, is happening, to take that moment is what you're doing now, what you want to continue doing.
That whole leap of faith is also about overcoming the fear and pursue something else. And I think that was your entrepreneurial spirit driving to say, this is not the end.
And it's definitely just the beginning. And it's definitely hard, even going through the beginning of my culinary career, to say, I'm going to work for like $12 an hour at 30-something years old. That's a humbling moment to say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to be able to go out. I'm not going to be able to save as much as I would normally would. Really having that faith and overcoming a lot of fear. It's not an absolute, and also kind of defining your own success.
And what about seeds of doubt?
You always have the seeds of doubt, like, oh my God. Because, you always see these little ads. Make sure you have $100,000. This is your 6-figure business or whatever, or 7-figure, business. And if you're not making that, then you're a failure. Who wants to feel like a failure? So defining why you want to have your business. Is it for money? Is it for the flexibility? Why are you really understanding your why? That would kind of, push you through it. For me, it's definitely the freedom. More so the freedom to move to the beat of my own drum. But being an entrepreneur, it may not be a right way. It's only the right way for you and your business, and to understand that.
Be what you want to see.
Act 2, the road. So Keesha, at this part of the show, I always like to ask my guests, what is your passion?
Say, building powerful and purposeful partnerships through the medium of food. It's so broad, but yet, encompasses, everything that I, do. I love.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Talking to people about food and working with different companies and kind of figuring out how can I, magnify their, mission, making those different connections. As long as what I'm creating is underneath that umbrella, I know I'm in the right area.
And I think of food in the same way as I think of music. Like with music, when you hear a particular song, you feel transported to a particular time. There's certain emotions that get triggered, certain memories that get triggered. Well, I think the same way about food also. You might smell something, you may taste it, and you're like, oh, I know what this choices because the last time I had this or something similar to this, it was when this loved one made this for me. There are all these connections that people make around food. There's a lot of purposefulness in your efforts to engage people. How do you use food when you have corporate clients? How do you help or use food to help them express or achieve their mission?
So one case, I have a pop-up dinner series, Supper and Sip, and that's really one great example of have a theme. And so I can bring in different sponsors. I'm really meticulous. It's very exactly curating an experience. Who you work with, what does their mission mean, and does it all come together? So my last dinner was called Winter Wild, and it was more about women's empowerment. Even the venue that I chose is very light and airy, and having a dance instructor and just making women feel powerful at the end of the day. Yes, I could have just had a dinner, here's some food, and peace be with you. But to really think about what do I want people to experience, and using food as the backdrop for it. Or even the vendors you choose, to work with. And I do have that power. Black women, Black men, whoever, or just give somebody opportunity in this industry. Or even when I work with my corporate clients, really understanding, what they want to get out of having a personal chef.
For you, how do you decide to show up in culinary spaces as a Black person, specifically as a Black woman?
You do have to be conscious. Like, I am a Black woman, and it's more so, I guess, a class thing as a color thing. People who are hiring you, I'm a luxury item. People who can afford to hire you do, have definitely worth a couple of $1 million. And how do you show up? You have to know how to walk the walk and understand the world they live in, and even explain to people, like even family members, like, wait, she's a private chef cooking for white people. I mean, you can have this whole mammy feel at times, like, well, I'm getting paid well, just in case you want to know. But I can see the whole perception of exactly a Black woman cooking for predominantly white men. Sometimes it can play mind games on you, but I don't think the client understands what's going through your mind as a Black woman cooking for, a white person, like, or being transported to, another point in time. It is a different climate. Just knowing that this is a client business relationship. If I ever feel at some point there's any racial undertones or anything, then I know this is not the place for me. I'm blessed to have clients where you acknowledge race, but you're not looking at me in a certain light. In the restaurants is different because you don't see that many Black women, probably the only one. So either as a woman or as a Black woman. So you can, both of it. But I've been blessed to have worked with different women in positions of leadership, also to be in environments where it is supportive. You do hear a lot about the, sabotage and the negative stuff that comes out of restaurants, but not every kitchen is like that. Just find the right kitchen that works for you.
How would you connect these experiences to what's happening now with Black Lives Matter?
In the scope of, Black Lives Matter, I'm glad that people are looking to support Black women businesses like never before. Like, more grants are, coming open, and it's just really noticing that there is a problem. And if they do want to build, Black businesses, definitely it was not there before.
Although we have these different social movements that, quite frankly, the issues that they're raising are things that have existed for a very long time, where you have sexual impropriety and people using, power differentials for sexual gain or to engage in sexually oppressive practices. And then you also have the fact that Black Lives Matter and that many of our structures and institutions don't acknowledge that. It is, you're right, prompting more open and very direct dialogue around the inequities that persist and the ways that even in instances these intersect.
Exactly. It's kind of brutal. It really is. And you talk about, women's, issues, like you work on average in a restaurant 12 hours a day, work-life balance, having time off, adequate childcare. It's a lot that even being a woman, of color, at least these conversations are being had and actions are being taken.
We've been experiencing the pandemic of COVID-19. And so how has COVID specifically impacted you and your food education work? Are you seeing certain kinds of trends, ways in which people are reaching out to you to help educate folks around food, even in the midst of this pandemic?
Definitely took more of an online, not doing as much, personal chefing. I hate using the P word, but, enjoy the pivot and being able to connect to different people or people I would not have normally reached out to, vice versa, people reaching out. But I think it's more about how to be connected to people just on a human level and how to do it through social media, through different online events, to help people and, just have a good time and just to, if I'm able to make somebody smile, you know what, my job is done.
So give us an example of that.
I just did a cooking challenge where I focused in on natural foods. It wasn't the overt message, but all the ingredients that different chefs I worked with were, different fruits and, vegetables, nothing that's, crazy, like it was a sweet potato or, basil. So just get yourself open to different, ingredients or ingredients that you may be used to, but maybe preparing them in a different way and seeing how different people prepare them may hopefully inspire you to, get into the kitchen. It's interesting to watch people cook because it tells a lot about themselves.
Really? In what ways?
Some people don't like to follow instructions. You can give them a recipe and like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing. Nope, here we go. I'm gonna freestyle it. And then you want to know why the dish may not turn out the way you liked it. Or some people are apprehensive. Food and how you approach it does tell a lot about yourself. And I love it.
You have been in several web challenges, including the Epicurious challenge with over 10 million views. If you didn't know yourself and you're watching yourself, what would you watching yourself tell about you?
Oh, you just want to flip the script on me. Thank you. I'm definitely one who likes to follow a recipe. And I think that goes back into that science math. I want to follow it to a T and see how it turns out. Moments I have to tell myself, let it go, just flow. Definitely with more savory food that you can do more freestyle. With baking is more, you need to follow that precision, down pat.
I'm a huge fan of the Food Network. And so when I sometimes will watch the program Chop, there are no recipes, like literally to follow to a T. That is completely freestyle. So, if by chance you have someone who is listening in and they are from the Food Network, is this something that you would love to do? Or will your math science brain just sort of go like, oh my gosh, there are all these other competitive elements that are happening, and then you got to create this dish in like 25 minutes.
I watch those shows, every now and then I'm like, oh, hells no, I never want to do that. But then it makes you think about food in a different light. But then yet the whole time thing is definitely reflective of in the real world as a chef. Like, you got to get these dishes out at a certain point in time, not sitting there, I just want to, be whimsical. Like, no, let's go, throw something and kind of just let yourself go through that process quickly. Like for me, I like to kind of draw all over menus, but that is a whole different, you need to really whip it into, action.
So I think in theory, you would be intrigued by the opportunity, but you're like, for my mental health and sanity, that's not a good fit.
But it would be, because I'm always saying that you always have to have new challenges in your life to overcome. I would probably say no, but then no, you probably might regret it in the future. So definitely take it. And because you never know where anything leads you to know that you're not going to be cooking always under the perfect circumstances, especially in catering. You don't have a full-fledged stove. You're cooking on sternos in a back corner somewhere in a garage. Is that optimal? No, but you make it happen. And so if you definitely have a passion for food, kind of figure out how you want to express your love for food.
So then what lessons have you learned along the way?
Finding a mentor in regards to starting a business, you don't have to go at it alone. Working with a mentor or like a business coach, usually I see those upticks in growth quickly, as opposed to trying to tackle it by myself or just being in a little silo. The kind of thing when you're working by yourself, the people you're talking to is yourself to get, different perspective, and also from somebody who's been there, like seen this before, they know what you're going through, frame of reference to how you want to, tackle that problem. Most of us try to do it by ourselves and you just end up not moving as fast or as far as you could have. One big lesson, having a support group that gets it. You can have your friends and family for that, just friends and family, but yet having a support group of business-minded people, because the conversations are totally different.
In what ways?
For me growing up, we did not talk about, P&L statements or, how the best market. Those are not conversations you always would have with your friends and family, but sometimes you need to be in a different, group of people to have those conversations.
Where would one get a mentor? How does one find it when the field itself is so competitive and, people want you to be good, but not better than them?
And I tell you, it's true. Like you have to kind of figure out who has your best interest at heart. Even your peers can be your mentors. Like for me, I worked in different catering companies, so I'm able to kind of bounce around. So able to see different, from the culinary aspect, how different businesses operate. So it may not be a formal mentorship, but you're getting something out of it. You're offering your services as work and, you're seeing how things, happen. Then you can meet different chefs who are either at your same level or above. You may not say like, hey, I want you to be my mentor, but there is that mentor relationship. I think for me, being around people who like to show what they can do. If you just ask, 9 out of 10 times, most people are very helpful. In larger companies, it does have that competitive because it's only one person be on top. Working in a more traditional company, yes, there's only one executive chef. There's only figuring out, am I ever going to get to that leadership point? You might not. Within that respective company, you may have to leave. There's different culinary, organizations that you can join, culinary alliances that you can find, mentors. And if you look for somebody specifically, and that's what their organization is developed to do, to mentor women in the hospitality, industries. If you can't find one within your respective organization, you can find one in a professional, organization. Instagram, if you see people's pictures, just reach out and DM them. And I think that's kind of the great thing about social media. People are a lot more accessible. A lot of chefs are friendly people for the most part. I guess there are a bunch of douchebags, out there, but fine, if they don't respond or they say heck no, keep trying.
Get involved.
Act 3, where we land. Keesha, what are you most excited about personally and professionally? Are there particular projects, ventures that you are currently engaged in? Can people kind of tap in, learn more about you, learn more about these works and what you have going on?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stuff I do is on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram at Gourmet Diva, you can always see what new projects and events that are, popping up, different partnerships that, definitely be formed, and different cooking classes are in the works as well. And if anybody wants to reach out to have me, as a virtual cooking coach, feel free to, reach out. And definitely excited about things that we can create, and staying flexible is one huge aspect, as we don't know what this virus and what our landscape is going to look like. But definitely for me is, staying flexible with what I can do.
And where can people find you? What's your social media handle and what's your website?
Sure. My website is www.thegourmetdiva.com, and also on Instagram as Gourmet Diva.
Perfect. And so hopefully we'll get to see cookbook.
Like a cookbook is on the list somehow. I want like an anthology maybe of different women, powerful women, have them put recipes into this book or something. So something creative will come out of it.
Stay tuned on that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Chef Keesha, for all of your jewels, gems of knowledge and information that can help folks who are interested in pursuing their passion around culinary arts in a very formal way. I think your entrepreneurial spirit really helps to speak to just the ways in which we can be creative, not only in terms of our choices for our fields and what we wanted to pursue, but just even the kinds of activities that we engage in. So this was really lovely. This was fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
There you have it. The journey isn't over, but this episode is. Until next time, peace.